for the remainder of this chapter, these 8 verbs technically, you're going to need to know meaning and conjugation. So let's review saber. Saber is to know, infer, how to do something. What are the conjugations?
Ser.
And then the rest are all regular. So just the yo form, got to remember that's it. That is the only accent you need to worry about with this section. So make sure that it's clearly there. Conocer, what does it mean?
To know a person or be familiar.
So to know a person, be familiar with somebody, or to know a place. What's the irregular yo form of that one? Conozco. The ZCO at the end. Then the rest are regular. Conoces, conoce, conocemos, conocen. If you want to jot down on your notability, page 344 is where it talks about the rest of these go verbs. Basically, we're doing this whole section on all these verbs that have a weird yo form. So if you see a yo form on a quiz, on a test, on anything, automatically, something different about it. Think about what's different. So you just have to memorize the yo forms, but we're grouping them together. Saber and conocer, both the verbs to know, both the irregular and the yo form. The rest of these verbs all end in go for the yo form. So hacer is hago in the yo form. Then the rest are regular er conjugations. Haces, hace, hacemos, hacen. 2 very different meanings, to do or make. So you can use it in a lot of different ways. And also this is one of those weird verbs that has the phrases. Hacer un viaje from your vocab, to take a trip. Hacer las maletas, to pack a suitcase. So it can be used in a lot of different ways. Then poner is to put or place. Pongo is the yo form. The rest of the conjugations are regular conjugations. Pones, pone, ponemos, pone. Then traer is, you have one extra thing to remember about it. Traer is to bring. The yo form is traigo. Not quite sure where that I comes from, but it's there. That's the yo form of traer. Have to remember that extra weird thing about it. Then on our vocab we have the verb salir. We had salir a tiempo. We had salir, remember there were 3 different vocabs that were used there. Salir a tiempo is to leave on time, or to depart on time. Salir tarde was to leave late. And then salir con una demora was to leave with a delay. The regular yo form of salir is salgo. And then please remember that when you're using your regular er and ir endings for the present tense, EMOS for er verbs and IMOS for ir verbs. So salgo, irregular yo form, and then salimos, not salemos. So salir is an ir verb, and introducir, since we went ahead and did the verb conocer, which ends in ZCO, I wanted to just give you one more verb. Meaning is easy since it's a cognate, to introduce. And same as the verb conocer has a ZCO at the end, introduzco, ZCO. And then remember that it's also an ir verb, so you need IMOS instead of EMOS for that one. And then the last verb is venir. It's also in the go verb category. But remember that it's not just a go verb, it's also an E to IE change. If it helps you to remember, inside the shoe shape, pretty long shoe there, which basically just means that nosotros form is different. Notice it's also an IR verb, so it's IMOS instead of EMOS for the nosotros form. Irregular YO form, the go at the end, is your E to IE change. Questions so far? I want you to practice these, not necessarily just the way that we always just do conjugations. Or remember, your test will eventually be with your verbs in English, your quiz as well. Instead of saying salir, it'll say the verb to leave. So you have to know that the verb to leave is salir. Then you have to know the conjugation to make it agree with your subject. But the way I want us to practice them for now is to correct some sentences. We haven't done it in a while, so I wanted to bring it back. Should be the next page on your document. What do we do when we're correcting sentences?
You look for the subject and then you change the
Okay, so verb and subject always agree. What else do you change?
the adjectives.
Adjectives always agree with nouns.
Plural, singular.
Singular, plural, feminine, masculine. Articles also have to agree. So there's different ways to correct a sentence, but for us to all end up with the same answer, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the nouns the same. They're underlined on your paper to help you out since we haven't done this in a little bit. But make everything agree with what's underlined. So you wouldn't change this word to agree with this word. You're going to change this word and leave anything that's underlined the same, so that we all end up with the same answer and we don't have different versions. So I want you to correct some, and then we also haven't rearranged in a while. So what I want you to do with the rearranging, what do we always have first in a sentence? Subject. So out of all those words, what could be your subject?
Me.
Me would go with either
Madre.
madre or padre. And most likely you could have a plural subject, right? So plural subject goes in front, then your verb comes next. What do you always have to make sure you do to your verbs?
Conjugate.
Conjugate them always, always, always. Except when you have two in a row, don't conjugate the second one. Okay? Notice here you have two verbs. Which one is most likely going to come first?
Susanna.
Well, then Susanna would be your subject, Roberto also. But Saber would come first. You know how to skate, not skate to know. That wouldn't make any sense. So you're basically correcting to make sure everything agrees. Remember, everything in Spanish agrees in gender, feminine, masculine, and number, singular, plural. Remember that verbs don't have gender, just conjugating them. And then for the rearrange, you're just putting the sentence in order so that it makes sense. So subject first, then the verb, then everything else in an order that makes sense and that it matches. On these, you don't have to correct anything except for the verb.